Acción. Tras las cámaras, donde la magia del cine se convierte en realidad.
Super 8, escrita y dirigida por J.J. Abrams y producida por Steven Spielberg, es una película de ciencia ficción que cuenta las aventuras de un grupo de chicos que a fines de los años 1970 están filmando su propia película con una cámara Super 8. Pero claro, sin imaginar que serían testigos de algo muy extraño. El film se estrenó en abril del año 2011 y es una suerte de homenaje a E.T. porque está basada en ideas que nunca llegaron a formar parte del guión original del año 1982. Les propongo acercarnos tras las cámaras de Super 8.
My father had a little GAF Super 8 camera that I didn't have sound, but it was just this little camera, and I just started using it and making little movies, and all week I'd sort of plan what I was going to be shooting on the weekend, and then after I would film it, having to wait a week to get it back while the film was developed.
Well, what's the fastest you can do?
Well, I could put a rush on it and get your film back in 3 days.
It sort of became this sort of pattern in my life as a kid. It was kind of this incredible sort of salvation. It gave my life a kind of purpose.
Cut! That was mint. So good.
Do it again. It'd be like, cut. That was mint. The things that I did when I was a kid were, probably very much like I do now, movies that were about some kind of moment or some kind of physical conflict.
Excuse me, sir, were you in the wreck?
Shoot him again. God. That was awesome. That was so good. I just loved convincing my friends to help make these ridiculous movies, and it just sort of became really important really quickly for me. And it was just silly, goofy stuff, typically chase scenes or monster movies or fight scenes or things that I actually still love to do.
My only concern is it doesn't look like a Super 8 frame because the background is out of focus.
Well, let's flick through here and see what it looks like in real life. I had a friend who lived across the street from JJ, and we would make our little Super 8 films. And so would JJ, and then we kind of got to know each other that way.
Larry Fogg was incredibly brilliant with his photography, and being a DP makes a lot of sense.
He was exactly the same as he is today. Doing 100 things at once.
You're the one caught on the trick.
Yeah, and action. I met Matt Reeves when I was 14. I was on this public access TV show about kids making movies, and Matt saw it and called the guy, and that's how we met. And Matt introduced me to Brian Burke.
Super 8 filmmaking is something that's always been a part of my life. I went to school at USC Film School with Matt Reeves, so I was able to see all of Matt's Super 8 films. It's actually how I ended up meeting JJ, because I'd heard about this kid who was making movies, and he was making Super 8 movies. It was something that all kind of brought us together.
What was cool was that these were geeks fighting each other at different times, sort of working on the same craft, and it was kind of a fun way to, like, build a sort of community of like-minded people who were just trying to tell stories on film.
Now you need production value. Wait, you wrote scenes? I think you can use it. You never write scenes.
Well, JJ and I actually have a mutual history in making 8mm. JJ's case, Super 8, because he's much younger than me. In my case, before Super 8, I made 8mm films when I was growing up. And we had a very, very similar background.
It's probably hard to separate growing up in the mid-70s to mid-80s from the influence of Steven Spielberg's films.
Steven Spielberg was at the epicenter of everything that we dreamed of doing.
One of the things that is so incredible is his ability to tell stories about people who are real and relatable and grounded, going through something insane.
I love Star Wars, but I was far more interested in Close Encounters because of the fact that it was based in reality. It was here, you know, based on real people.
Rolling, set, and background. Background, and you're watching, you guys are watching, and all of a sudden the water tower falls and crashes onto the ground. Boom!
And that's why I'm excited about Super 8, because it has a very Close Encounters Spielbergian feel to it.
And slowly pushing in. And you feel more relief. You take her hand.
It was kind of where Super 8 started, which is it was just kind of talking about all these movies that really resonated for us, and also happened to be big spectacles. But it's what made Steven our unknowing mentor when we were growing up.
I found JJ when he was 14 years old because he cut together all my 8mm home movies. That was his first job. He and Matt Reeves.
You know, you could do this. You could come in and you go, ah, like that, so you scream, ah, and then you like die, and then you go, ah, like that, like, and then just come right to the camera.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was a Super 8 film festival, and I remember JJ had a film in it, I had a film in it, Matt Reeves had a film in it.
We had such a fun time making it. I hope you pick this film to win the Cleveland International Super 8 Film Festival. Stop!
Good cut. Good.
So Matt and I were in the film festival, and the LA Times did a small article about us that was called The Beardless Wonders. The title obviously presumes that we couldn't grow beards, which is not humiliating, but it was, you know, presumptuous. And we got a call the next day from Steven Spielberg's office, and it was his assistant, who at the time was Kathy Kennedy, saying, Steven has these movies he made when he was your age, and they're in some sort of disrepair. Would you be available and interested in repairing them? And Matt and I were like, you know, what? I don't know if I were to see an article right now, if I'd think, well, I'll just send the original copies of these films to kids I don't know who can't even grow beards. Why should I trust him with my movies? So he sends the movies over, Matt and I fix them up, and watching his movies, it was inspiring because there were movies that were kind of like in the same vein as what we were doing. And it was exciting, and it made us feel like, oh, we should keep going. It was kind of an encouraging thing. So we never met Steven during that. But then 6 or 7 years later, I had my first meeting with him, and I just wanted to tell him desperately about this, but I thought, and finally the meeting was over, and I said, listen, I just got to tell you before you go that like 6 years ago, and he's like, no, I know, you added the movies that I made when I was a kid. I was like, how did you knew that? You knew I was the same guy? He's like, yeah, thank you. And I was like, you're welcome. And then I drove home, and I remember calling Matt and just freaking out that I had met Steven Spielberg finally, and that he knew we did his movies. And I got totally lost. I don't know, I remember I looked up and I literally had no idea where I was.
So we actually have a history in how we met.
Set. Yep. Energy and action, Riley.
Here we go. Start filming. Be extra loud when the train passes by. Ready?
I was telling him about all the adventures I had as a kid making little movies with my neighborhood friends, and he had the same experience. And so we thought, wouldn't it be cool to make a movie about young people making movies? And that's how it all started.
Guys, watch out! Joe, what the hell are you...
We had a number of meetings trying to figure out what it would be, what's the genre of the movie, and we just couldn't hit it. And it occurred to me that I had this other idea about a train transferring contents from Area 51. And I just thought, well, what if there was a crash?
Cool.
But there was nothing unique about it. And that movie had no characters to speak of, but there was a premise, there was an idea.
Oh my God, look at that. Look at it again. Look at it again.
And I thought, well, I've got a story with no characters, and I have a bunch of characters without a story. And so I called Steve, I said, listen, what if we mix these two things together?
What if we take the idea of kids making 8mm films, and like the Zapruder film, something appears on their 8mm dailies that unlocks an entire mystery and crisis.
And it turned out, I discovered, later that E.T. for him was never an alien movie at first. It was a story about a divorced family.
Want to tell me where you were? Or should I tell you?
You feel like I've been in this with him before, and I don't want to get into another thing. Maybe that's why I can't be here. I can't be here, And then when she says that, you jump on that.
That's what I will.
Then why don't you just go? Go, like your mother. And when he says she's like your mother, that is like a knife in your heart.
And it wasn't until later that he realized he had this other thought about an alien movie. And so when he told me that, it was cool to see that, even he had done that before.
Do you not feel like that? No, I totally do. I'm just kind of in shock at this entire conversation.
I do feel like, in many ways, what I'm doing now feels exactly like what I did when I was 14. Exactly. It's the idea of something that's cool where you think, oh, that would be amazing. How do I do it? And then you start to put together whatever tools you have at your disposal to figure that out. So it's a weird thing. You have to be scientific about it because you only have so much time, but you have to let go of the practical, pragmatic stuff and just be in the moment and watch it. And for example, in Super 8, when Elle was telling Joel's character about her father.
He drank that morning. My dad.
She was so emotional and so raw and just real. I was literally off camera practically giggling. Like I was so excited that she was doing this thing that was so heartbreaking. And when you write something like that, your dream is, especially with a kid, you're like, well, will this person who's going to end up being 12, 13, 14 years old, and she was 12, will this person be able to remotely deliver these lines, let alone be emotional during it? And she killed,
He wishes... I know he wishes it was him instead of her.
And I really wanted that to be the spirit of this movie and not feel like we were sort of in this kind of rote, crossing off the shots that we were doing in order, but rather just going, what would be cool? Because that was literally the approach that I always tried to take when I was 14.
Jacob, Stephen, Andrew, Stephen, Jade.
JJ and I talk about regularly how out of body it is to be working with Steven Spielberg, particularly on this film about kids making Super 8 movies. And, people often say, well, you don't want to meet your heroes. And it's gone beyond meeting your hero, and it's far more amazing than I ever dreamed it could be.
Steven visited the set a few times. They were talking about the shots and they were collaborating. And that was weird because to be shooting and filming and then look up and see Steven Spielberg there, it was kind of an out-of-body experience. I was like I was dreaming. And when Steven came up to me one day and he said, I looked at the dailies, they're just really gorgeous, really good work. I love the lighting, but I was just speechless, I had to walk away and have a moment because that meant a lot.
I knew pretty instantly that this was the thing I wanted to do in my life. And I know that if I wasn't lucky enough to make a living doing it now, that I would still be doing it. I just would not be doing it, for my income. I would have my job and I would be writing and or making films.
Videoclub M&M. Copias originales en DVD y Blu-ray. Todos los géneros. Amplio catálogo en VHS. Insumos de computación y accesorios de video. Servicio de desgrabación de audio. Vicente López, 2983, Villa Ballester. Teléfono 4738-2041.
So it'll be sound, then one bang, then three bangs, then one bang. So it's 1-3-1 on the bangs.
Yeah.
On that fourth one, the single one, that's the door bursting off. You might want to follow it up a little bit, and then you come back down to.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
JJ always had this idea to do a movie about materials being shipped from Area 51. There's a lot of rumors that there's extraterrestrial life there.
Hey, Mark. 3, 2, 1, action.
JJ's been leading us in that direction to keep the alien hidden until necessary, you know, so there's always a mystery. And so your mind can fill in the danger.
Quick like that. Max focus, boom. And head off. Handcuff.
What the hell?
The process of developing the monster, or the sort of the process you'd go through if you were going to create a new species. Because it has to work as a creature, it has to work as a living, breathing animal. Kind of the physics of its limbs and the way it walks and the way it moves and the way it breathes and all those things inform what it looks like. And the creature designer, Neville Page, he goes through that process.
The first meeting that was like kind of the official uploading of all the information to me was with Steven Spielberg and JJ. Steven had a very specific visual that he wanted, and JJ had one that he wanted, and I, of course, had a visual that I wanted, and so it took literally a year's worth of time of almost constant design, trying to find the right design for JJ.
I was going for at least something that felt like there was going to be a real distinction to it, like how it looked, what its, profile was like, what its, silhouette was. And I knew that I wanted to be able to be, sort of front and back lit in a way that would be unique.
So this was the first pass, and JJ really liked this as a means to kind of start the conversations. And I started using right out of the gate this Rorschach technique that could kind of give cues to potential form language and design. So this is more in Steven Spielberg's description. Real long, attenuated, thin, skinny type bodies.
The flexibility the creature had in terms of what sort of thing it became was really important, because when you start to look at what's been done, you realize, A, everything's been done, and then B, you realize that there are kind of some specific paradigms that you have to sort of adhere to. You know, it's either going to be the more spider-like thing, or it'll be the sort of brute beast, or it'll be the gray, kind of elegant alien. And what I loved about this is it didn't easily fall into any one category.
It's the story. Narrative always drives whatever you design. So it needed to be able to walk, needed to be able to have very articulate hands. It had to be able to dig holes, or a large cave. It had to have an emotional state in its face because of a very key moment at the end of the film. So these were head shapes for a possible Super 8 creature. Strange mouths, simply bad design, weird. All the while, what you're looking for is stuff that JJ is going to have a strong reaction, whether he loves it or he hates it. Either way, it gives me a barometer of where to go.
One of the big challenges with the creature is, and it's one of JJ's big concerns, it's always been, you know, how much of the creature do you show? Because you want it to be scary, but at the same time you want to read it. In the bus attack, it's very dark out there, so the creature is pretty dark. The lights are flickering and we're catching glimpses of him. Just finding that balance of how much we show, how much we don't show.
Seeing the, like, to me, it's like what I want to do is have him see the creature. It's about the emotional experience of this kid seeing him.
So Joel, let me see where you are when you first climb up. Can you get to your knees, like facing the bottom? What I'm trying to do is find a position for you to stop and look back at the creature before you turn back to help your friends.
Where's the alien?
At the front of the bus, going through the main door.
The whole idea was that the creature would not be easily revealed through the watching of the movie until the very, very end. So there are little details in there that Neville put into the design that are deliberately put in there to confuse the audience. So when they catch a glimpse of the creature earlier on in the movie, they can't quite work out.
You have an image in your head, you know, about what it might be, and then you know as soon as you see it, it's going to be 10 times scarier.
Just watching.
Guys, I think I just short-changed something. We gotta move. Come on, guys, we gotta go. Come on.
Yeah, cut, good, right up.
There was a moment when the design worked. This is the sketch that set the tone for what the creature would be like. I thought it would be interesting to have these limbs above, but I just didn't like it always being there as antenna. I thought there's got to be a cooler way to deal with that, and it just kind of occurred to me that, oh, wait a minute, that could be two independent shoulder joints. And quite frankly, this was rapidly the end result.
Neville went further and created essentially this biped that had arms that would separate, so that what was sort of 2 legs, 2 arms, and could look rather humanoid, could suddenly look almost more like an insect.
This was when JJ was getting pretty excited. These were a few images that just made him go, wow, I think that's going to work. That's pretty cool.
There's a difference between doing a design or a sculpt and then having to see that move and imagine it's like 15 feet tall and weighs, 700 pounds. Ultimately, the goal is to look real. You want to keep as much of the design, but if it moves too quickly or moves in an artificial way, then you're pulled right out of the movie.
So this is an early sort of test of where we were with his walk cycle, and you can see here very humanoid legs. And then it just, became apparent that this kind of thing just wasn't working for us for, some of the sequences. So we went very much to this kind of thing. And this just looks so creepy. And when we saw this, we knew it was going to work for the tunnel sequence especially.
There's a certain amount of assumption that's going on because we don't have a guy in the rubber suit standing there and knowing how big or how much space. we need to give him.
I think we need to make some of that stuff even higher. Just because he is so tall, I just want to make sure it doesn't seem like he's doing things at that knee level.
In regard to the cave, we talked to JJ enough to know, even though it was very early in his process of designing the alien, the type of hands it had, because that was critical for how the cave had been dug and was critical for how our sculptors were going to simulate that.
The hardest part to reconcile was the fact that it had to take apart microwaves and V8 engines and lift them and move them around and assemble them and still be able to dig holes.
And 3, 2, 1.
What the hell?
If you look at animals in nature that are burrowing, digging animals, they've got long claws, and those claws are not going to be able to do very delicate, dexterous work. So I then transferred that idea down to its feet, thinking that the feet could be the actual digging device.
I don't buy it. What? Dad dug all this in a couple of days. From another planet and the digging is what bothers you?
I didn't want the cave to look like a natural phenomena. I didn't want it to be unrelated to what this creature's physical qualities were.
One of the harder aspects of the creature is that we have to go from it's eating people, it's terrorizing the town, to we believe that this creature actually, at its heart, is a good sentient being that really just wants to go home.
We know how hard it's been, but not everyone's horrible.
Now, he's going to get grabbed. You're going to scream. Ready? Watching. It comes closer. It's coming closer. And it grabs him. You're watching. You're looking up, looking up. Ultimately, the key thing for me was in the last moments with Joe and the creature was that the face had an ability to emote.
The character's emotive state coming across meant doing motion capture. And that's when Bruce Greenwood was hired to be our Super 8 creature.
It's the performance that JJ timed to actually Joe's performance on the set. So we knew where to go with the creature as far as what he would be doing. I mean, it's all subtle stuff, but, you know, subtle is hard. Having that great reference from Bruce helped us enormously to create this moment. And then the creature's eyes peel back, and you see these sort of human eyes.
JJ wanted you to see the creature throughout the film with these alien eyes, and then at one point it reveals that it has a vulnerability. So my thought was that it has this Y-shaped slit. Those membranes pull back to reveal the very vulnerable, shiny, glassy eyeball, which we ended up changing the eyes to match more of the mother, so that there is this very subtle connection that the boy starts to read in the eyes of the creature.
You can still live.
What makes something iconic and classic is that it is timeless, and people look back at it 20 years from now with the same degree of interest. And dare I say, I think we achieved something pretty unique.
And 3, and 2, and 1, and
Cut. Beautiful.
Cut.
Great.
Cut.
Corten, ¿te quedaste con ganas de ver más cine? No te preocupes. Videoclub M&M, desde 1986, te ofrece todas las novedades y los títulos difíciles de conseguir. Acércate a Vicente López, 2983, Villa Ballester. Teléfono 4738-2041.